and both guys know they want to see her again, but they aren't sure it can happen. But Eric is like, let me think of something. So then Jules is still thinking about them, and because they didn't fight for her to stay, she did feel some type of way. But she also felt like, that wasn't the last time she would see him. And my thing with that is, don't play games. You know, don't try and make somebody run after you. Like, you know what I mean? Your ass knew you wanted to stay. Just say, when they asked you, when they said don't go, clearly that instant of a reaction is someone that wants you to stay. Like, they shouldn't have to, like, beg and plead for you to stay there. Like, come on, bitch, you already getting $500,000. Like, stop. Get it together. So, Jules is catering an event about, I think it's like 2 weeks later. And she doesn't need the money. She just did it as a favor for Carol because they're friends. And so she overhears women speaking of Eric and how he was so hot before and how the accident, had just destroyed him and all this type of stuff. And she hears a classmate of hers from high school saying that, Keegan, he couldn't hold a candle to Eric previous to the accident. And this, of course, gets Jules' blood boiling. And even though they haven't reached back out to her since that night, she still feels some type of way about them. And so she doesn't want to hear anyone. She still feels protective. She doesn't want anyone saying anything bad about them. And so then one of her classmates comes up to her. I think her name was Allison. She's all fake and condescending. It was annoying. They talk a little bit back and forth. Keegan shows up in the ballroom because Carol had told him Jules was going to be there. So he scanned the room. He's looking for Jules. Then up walked the Allison chick. And Jules spots him. And she rushes to the back. And she's like freaking out. And then she's like, why am I freaking out? They didn't call me. And she's going back and forth with herself. And then she says out loud, what did you think, you would get? Total devotion? It was just sex. And then she hears Keegan's voice say, I thought it was pretty damn good sex, but I might be biased. So she asked him, what are you doing here? And he's like, I was invited. And so they sneak in like this little dark alcove, and he just crushes her lips, and she feels so drunk just from his kisses. And so then, of course, they fuck, and they hear voices, Allie and sound like some other women going into the bathroom. Now, to me, I was like, why not stay, wait for them bitches to leave before you scurry out? You freaked out and ran your ass out. Like, that was so fucking stupid, So she scurries out. Keegan's right behind her. The women see him. Allie's all like, oh, I didn't know you knew Keegan, Julianne. So she leaves and she doesn't say anything else to Keegan. So both of them are freaking out and being stupid. So Keegan feels awful because he feels like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have did that to her. I made her feel like nothing. But I'm like, why do you feel like that? She fucked you. She wanted to fuck you. She ran off. So why do you feel so bad? So then she has a conversation with Carol about Keegan. And Carol's just pretty much like, basically, if you like him, what is the problem? Like, what is the issue? So then Eric calls Jules. He invites her over to his place because, Keegan's flipping out. He had called Eric and told him, I fucked up. I really fucked up. And he's like, what did you do? Did you hurt her? And she's like, no. He's like, but I fucked up. And he told her I fucked her in the closet. And Eric's like, okay, what's wrong with that? Like, what did you do? And it was just, they both got on my nerves, Jules and Keegan. That was a little just too much for me. So Eric invites her over to his place. So Jules, she gets to Eric's place. And Eric, he asks her, are you hungry? And she's like, is this your way of asking me to cook for you? Because Jules can cook. And like her whole dream is to like do her own, restaurant type of a thing. So she can cook. So they go in the kitchen, they keep talking, and then she asks, do you not want to have sex with me? And he, of course, is like, I want you like my next breath. And she then kisses him. They go at it again. He ties her to the headboard and he fucks her from behind. And then he kept stopping, and she would be like, you gotta move. Like, you can't just do this. And he was like, listen, I don't want it to end. She's like, I get that. There will be a next time. You just gotta move. Then they have, like, of course, this mind-blowing orgasm. So meanwhile, Keegan's at his place getting completely drunk on tequila, debating on whether he should go to Eric's place, which is in walking distance. So he decides he's going to walk over. He gets over there, goes up to the room. He sees Eric and Jules sleep in the bed, completely naked. Jules looks up at Keegan, and Eric freezes, and she knows that he saw Keegan too. And then Keegan just walks away, and Jules, like, runs after him, and Eric stays back at the door, and he's just, like, kind of watching, like, he don't know what to do. So Keegan's, like, apologizing. He's like, I shouldn't have come. And she was like, why did you come? And he was like, I felt bad about taking advantage of you. And she was like, you didn't. Like, if I didn't want it to happen tonight, it wouldn't have happened. So then Jules is like, we have to talk. Let's meet in the study. So she goes, puts on some sweatpants and t-shirt that Eric had gave her, and as he knew she wasn't going to put her work clothes back on. So Jules, of course, brings up the whole thing of them all being in a relationship together. So they basically feel like when someone's missing out of the equation, like, they can feel it. So I guess it's kind of like that devotion you feel in just, when it's two people. It's the same type of situation. It's just that there's three people involved. And so she's just like, well, let's try and, maybe try this, like, have you ever dated anyone? And they don't normally date the women. They fuck them and they done. Like, Eric don't deal with them afterwards. He makes Keegan deal with the shit. But that's it. Like, relationships, nah, they not doing that. But they both are very much into Jules, and so they are willing to try. They do have a lot of issues about, Eric's state of mind, him dealing with the fire. So Eric believes that someone did that. Someone set that explosion. This wasn't an accident. Someone set that explosion. Keegan feels like he's just spiraling, and he's just keeping himself locked away, obsessing about this, and he's trying to get him to move on, let it go, this type of thing. But that's kind of hard for him to do that when something that traumatic has happened to him. Like, you think about that, something that traumatic happens, you deal with this every day, because he has to look at he tries to avoid mirrors, but I'm sure he catches a glimpse of himself, and so he's still living with it, and you want him to just act as if nothing has happened, or not look at a possibility that someone tried to do this. Like, it's kind of, that's a lot to ask of a person, And so they decide, they do want to try, and they both take her right then and let her know, if you want to leave, you better do it now, because you are staying between the two of us all night. And then they just had the hottest sex scene. It was great. So when they're done, Eric says, everyone upstairs. And Keegan's shocked because Keegan shocked everyone because he just went. Like, he thought he was going to protest a little bit and be like, no, I'm not going to go. But Keegan was like, fuck it, I'm all in, So Eric looked at himself in the mirror, which is something, like I said, he doesn't really do too often. And he hadn't done it in a long time. And he told Keegan, don't be trying to leave, because Keegan will try and dip out too. And, especially with the situation with Jules, because it's kind of sensitive, because they both really like this woman. And that's like a first. Like, they may find a woman attractive, but like to really like her, this is new territory for them as well. So of course they had a long night. They all slept together, and when Keegan woke up, because he wakes up at like 6:30, he like took her in the ass, Eric in her pussy. Like, they do hardcore, honey. They be trying to get it in. So when they were done, Jules was like, she's hungry. Keegan went to go make pancakes, but Eric didn't have all the ingredients, so he made his grandmother's scone recipe. So Jules loves it, and they all sit in bed, and without saying a word, Jules was like, well, what now? They started to argue, because Keegan was like talking about taking himself out of the equation because he knew how much Eric wanted her. And Eric knew that that's what he was doing. He's like, stop, So they were like, okay, we're taking you to dinner. We'll pick you up at 7:30 tonight. So they go to pick her up. They meet her mom. of course, when she tells her mom dating these two men, her mom's kind of looking at her like, what? So Jules had a situation years ago. She's 22 years old, but she did have a situation years ago where she was involved with a married man. She did not know that the man was married, right? But when when a wife finds out, it doesn't really matter if you knew or not. To her, you're with her husband, and it caused a massive scandal in the town because it's a small town where they are, in PA. So she was kind of, I don't know, can we say maybe like a scarlet letters on her, So that's kind of the situation with her. So her mother, of course, is concerned. That would be with good reason. Daughter's got a, semi-history, and here she is dating two men, two very wealthy men. Yeah, there's a little concern. So they meet the mom. Of course, they go to the restaurant. There's some stares. There's some whispers, things like that. They had a private room, though, so they had a great dinner. Then they went to Keegan's place, and there was a woman there. Turns out it's Eric's sister, Katrina, who also used to be Keegan's ex-fiance. At first, they didn't want Jules to meet her. They were like, fuck, they were mad because they had all these plans for the night. And so they were like, we got to get rid of her, like shit. And then they were like, okay, maybe, we can. Well, Jules wasn't trying to leave. She was like, I can just wait outside until you guys are done. She wasn't trying to leave because, like, listen, all this energy, sexual attention and everything, and as good as they give it to her, girl wanted it. So she was like, bitch, I ain't really trying to leave. Like, we'll just wait, So, they was like, okay, yeah, because at first he was gonna have Keegan take Jules home. Eric was, but that wasn't gonna work because they both were like, we want to fuck you too bad. Like, we just got to get rid of her. So of course, when they see Katrina, she's like glaring at Jules because she knows what happens with them. She knows that they take women together. So apparently Katrina has a history of like psychotic breaks. She falls in love really hard. There were some issues also from childhood with their mother. They don't go into full detail, or I just can't remember at this moment exactly what the issues were with the mother, but it had a profound effect on Katrina, and she's had a couple psychotic breaks. She found out about their games, and right when he was gonna call off, Keegan was going to call off the wedding. They weren't right for each other. They both knew it. But when she found out about their games, of course she was pissed. So she felt like the reason he was marrying her was because really he wanted Eric. And this was like his way of having like a portion of Eric. Like, she thought a whole nother way, but it wasn't like that. It just was, we were not right for each other. Just simple as that. So Katrina's there to let Eric know that she knows that it was Eggert Labs that was behind the explosion. So over the Christmas break, when he went home, he had talked to his sister about it, and she's an attorney, but she had got on it and she got some information for him. So he's not crazy. That shit really did happen. It wasn't an accident. Someone really set that explosion. So Eric takes her to her place, and then Jules and Keegan get the party started while he's going. So then Jules saw a more aggressive side to Keegan, and she likes that. And this is the part of himself that he tries to suppress. He tries to hide that part of himself, and she was like, I want that side of you, So Keegan talks all filthy and dirty to her. I loved it. And he tells her how hard he's gonna fuck her and where, and they do it twice, and they end up in the tub, and then Eric joins him, and then she rides him to orgasm. Keegan comes as well, and they go to bed, wake up, and they have a conversation over breakfast about how this is going to work. So Eric wants in public for everyone to think that Jules is on, as it isn't anyone's business like what they do sexually in their bed. It isn't, but he feels like that'll save a lot of face. They're in a smaller town, like that's the best thing to do. Jules and Keegan agreed to the arrangement, but neither one of them is really happy about that. So Jules goes home to her mother, and her mother's waiting. And her mother's normally like at a brunch on Sundays. Her mom wanted to know how her night went. So Jules, of course, was like, let me go change. And when she came back, her mother was like, you got the money from them, didn't you? Now tell me what you had to do. So she was honest. She told her mother what happened, told her the full story. Her mother was like,